Hey guys, Peter here to tell you about the latest from Devin Townsend Lightwork on October 28th on Inside Out Music. This album has 10 tracks, 56 minutes in length, and this is his 21st full-length solo record. He's a Canadian singer, songwriter, musician, genius. As far as the design goes, I love this record. I love how it's put together. It's absolutely perfect for the experience that it offers. It's an album that at first glance feels very balanced, very cohesive, easy to see the path that's right in front of you. It's easy to navigate, it's easy to digest. He created elements, subtle elements from song to song that allows these tracks to merge almost with one another, and there's really no interruption in the overall experience that you get as you're navigating across all 10 songs. But there's also a lot of versatility. This is also a very diverse record. But that diversity of the album doesn't have an impact, or at least it doesn't have a negative impact on how you perceive the album, on how you perceive the mobility of the album, or how the whole record comes together as one. He was able to create two different sides in one single coin and allow them to work in prol of one another. They're both making each other stronger as you progress. The diversity allows you to feel like there's a new experience with each and every single track, and the undercurrent that connects all 10 songs allows you to feel like they're all part of a much larger picture. Perfect way to balance out a record like this. As far as the soundscape is concerned, this album is very diverse. That's where you're going to see the majority of the diversity that the record has to offer. From a Broadway-style musical approach to a more electronic, industrial EDM sound, this record offers everything in between. It doesn't have just one soundscape. It has 10 different soundscapes, but they all offer the same sound experience. This is how he connected this record. This is how this album works. You can feel the connection. You can feel the red line that exists across all 10 songs. You can see the signature elements within the sound that brings these 10 tracks together, that makes them feel like they're part of a much larger picture, that makes this album work as a whole. But you also see the diverging parts, the moving parts that break these songs apart, that allow them to have their own individual fingerprint, their own individual DNA, and allows you to appreciate the record a lot more in a better way. This album is never going to sound boring because it has different elements at every single turn. But at the same time, you feel like they're all there together as one, and they're all pieces of the same exact puzzle, just with different shapes, just with different sizes, just with different experience coming through them. So I really enjoy the sound on this record. It's a very mellow sounding album. It's really stripped down. When you look at the title of the record, Lightwork, that title really represents well the sound experience on this record. It feels very stripped down at times. It feels bare bones. It allows you to feel the emotion of the record, not just from a musical side of things, but also from a vocal side of things, a lot better. There's not as many things getting in your way. It's an album that puts everything on the table, allows you to see everything right in front of you, and then just digest them individually and as the collective as you're moving along. Now, within this sound experience, within this light-hearted sound experience that this album offers, two main elements come into the forefront: the keys and orchestration as one, and the guitars as another. Now, if you're expecting one of these two elements to drive the experience of this record, you're going to be sorely mistaken, because this album is not driven by one element sound-wise. This is not a guitar-driven album. This is not a synth-driven album. This is not an album that's driven by just one piece of that puzzle. This is an album that sound-wise is driven by all the parts coming together as one. That is what pushes this record forward. The sound experience that you get, that balanced sound experience that you're going to see across 10 songs, is what drives the actual soundscape of the record. So the album is driven by that overall feel that it gives. Not by the guitars, not by the drums, not by the keys. They are there to create the elements, to create the borders, to create the shapes of the songs, but everything moves together as one, as a collective. Now, the keys and orchestrations on this record sound really interesting because they obviously have a musical impact to how the tracks are perceived, to how the tracks come across. A lot of that stripped down effect that you're going to get from this album really comes from those keyboards, from the piano, from the orchestrations, the lightheartedness that they offer to these songs. the larger than life feel that they give, expanding the footprint of the tracks, but not necessarily making them feel bigger with more volume, just making them larger, making that pathway, that journey has a much larger pathway because of how the keys and orchestrations are put together. I really enjoyed what they had to offer, the dynamics that they offer, and also having different uniquenesses from song to song. Now, the guitars on this album are interesting, but once again, they're not the drivers of the experience. They're not the drivers of the sound. They're just another layer. They're just another tool in the arsenal of tools that were used throughout this entire record. I enjoyed the acoustic side of this album, or with the introduction of acoustic elements, a lot more because it played into that more stripped down feel that you get when you're listening to this album. That bare bones, organic aspect that this album offers from an experience and sound comes together a lot better with the acoustic guitars, and in terms of the impact that they give the songs and how well they incorporate themselves in that overall atmosphere and that overall experience. Not to say that I didn't like everything that guitars offer, but the acoustic side of the guitars really had a more of a positive, long-lasting impact, in my humble opinion, as far as the overall soundscape is concerned. Now, as diverse this album is sound-wise, this album is equally as diverse vocally. But it's an incredible vocal approach that this album puts together. You have choirs, you have backing vocals, you have layers, you have harsh vocals, clean vocals, screaming vocals, you have humming, spoken word. I mean, this album offers every single element of a vocal approach that you could put on any album. There is no color under the rainbow as far as vocal performance is concerned, or tonality or delivery, that is not included in this record. But it matches the diversity of the album. It matches the soundscape, the sound experience that the album offers. But when we got into those vocals that match that stripped down effect, that almost sound like a murmur, they come across in a very subtle, kind, soft-spoken kind of way, those to me really hit home, and it hit home really hard. They had a more of a lasting effect on how you experience the songs, on how you digest the lyrics, the content of the lyrics. It allows you to feel them a lot better. Everything else was there, and it was there in order to give value to the songs, to give quality to the songs. And not to say that I didn't like the harsher vocals, the choirs, the backing, all of that. I enjoyed all of that. But when it came down to feeling the song a little bit deeper, in order for the track to cut a little bit deeper, those soft spoken words, that vocal approach, that tonality was absolutely off the charts. All around, this is one of those records that I enjoy the album, but I'll be honest, it's not necessarily a record that resonates with me. Having said that, the more I listen to the record, the more I like the record. But this album, for someone like me, it's an album that's going to have its time and its place. It's not a record that I can pick up and listen to it every day, because I have to be in the right state of mind in order to fully appreciate what the album offers. I can appreciate the quality of the craftsmanship that went into making this record. I can appreciate the vision, but for me to appreciate the sound, the experience, I have to be in the right state of mind. It's one of those albums, at least that's the impact that it had with me. But it's a growing record. The more that I listen to it, the more comfortable I'm becoming in its experience, the more comfortable I'm becoming within it, and the more comfortable I become, the better I can understand the record, the better I can connect with the album going forward. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Lightworker. This is my favorite track on the album, hands down. It has such a nice touch. It feels very stripped down, even though it's not a very stripped down track, but it gives you that sensation, it gives you that appearance. The soft vocals, that soft tone, that soft delivery works so well on this track. It creates a little bit of a lullaby. Like, it has a Broadway classic style feel in terms of the construction, in terms of the move between the verses and the chorus, because the verses is where you get that stripped down effect, where you get that lullaby effect. And then the chorus is a lot more bombastic. It allows it to be the climax of the song. So every time the chorus comes in, you feel like there's a climax that was just reached. So it's a very interesting song from that perspective. But it's a track that as you walk away from it, you walk away concentrating on how good the vocals were. You really feel like it's a beautiful track sound-wise. But the vocals, the diversity of the vocals, how organic they sound in the context of the song, really allows you to get the grasp of what this track is really all about. A track that starts off exactly how it finishes. It goes full circle. You feel like it's complete. It's a track that gives you the sense of being complete and having that start and finish being exactly the same experience, same sensation. Next you have Heavy Burden. The choirs and backing vocals are outstanding on this track. It helps define the sound, it helps define the atmosphere. The children's voices on this track takes the song in a much different way. It makes the song feel slightly different. It allows you to connect with it from a different perspective, from a different angle. The more electronic vocals create texture, but you're not really there for them. You're there for the choirs, you're there for the backing vocals that at the end of the day become more than backing vocals and become actually your main focus of your attention as far as the vocal performance is concerned. When you look at this track, you have to see this track from a very unique perspective. The sound on this song is the canvas, and the vocals, the different styles, the different approaches are the brushes and the paint that's being used. Normally you don't see that on the track, at least not as well defined as you'll see it on this one, and that's what allows this song to jump up into the forefront and be unique while using a lot of the same elements that you're going to find throughout the entire record. Last but not least, Vacation. This is a Beatles song. I mean, it sounded like a Beatles song. At the very least, it sounded like a Paul McCartney song. I got that vibe from it. It obviously, with the name Vacation, he created a song that has a summer vibe. It has a very refreshed atmosphere, very refreshed soundscape. You feel like you're within nature, you feel like you're outdoors. It has that bright light to it that it comes across not just in the sound, but it also comes across in the vocals. The drums and guitars are really solid on this track. They allow themselves to really emphasize that nature, that outdoors, sunny, bright day feel that this track has. And then the soft spoken vocal approach works extremely well for this track. It does give you that sense of a Beatles, Paul McCartney song, but it also plays well into that summer atmosphere, painting a vivid picture of what this song is all about in your mind. This is it, Devin Townsend, Lightwork, out October 28th on Inside Out Music. Let me know your thoughts on him, his work, this album, the singles. Use the comment section below. I'll be reading those and getting back to you. Take care, guys.